All right. Welcome to episode number 3 of the Rebel Project podcast. I am very, very stoked to have a friend of mine here. He is also in the Rebel Project, which is a men's performance group. And I'm very, very excited to dive into a conversation with Brent because we got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about purpose. We're going to be talking about growing as your own individual and also having to navigate a relationship, a marriage, and being a father as you continue to push yourself to your own greatness, maintaining that connection. And we're going to talk about the rocky road that it's been for you and hopefully get a little bit of vulnerability out of you today. So, Brent, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thank you for driving down. He came all the way from LA. And we are here.
It was a grueling journey.
Right? On a Sunday afternoon. But we're here at DreamX Studios and very excited to be chatting with you. So let's start with how we kind of reconnected about a year ago. I was getting a Rebel Project started. I was having some events down here in Orange County, and you came down to my second event. And you've kind of been in the self-development space for a while, but that event kind of shifted some things for you, and we kind of reconnected, and then we started meeting and chatting and just having some outside conversations, and you just said, man, dude, I love this. I need this. I want to be involved. And here we are today on a podcast talking about purpose and growth.
Yeah, dude. It was a good opportunity for me because being entrepreneurial in a handful of ways, really since the military days, really.
Yeah.
I never really surrounded myself purposefully with people who were trying to do the same type of work as me. And so that was I saw it as the opportunity that it was when you reached out, and I was like, you know what, Luke's promoting his own thing, and came and got a feel for the type of work, the type of disciplines that are necessary to really do well when you're driving your own ship and not just showing up someplace else.
Yep.
And proposed some hard questions, and then you start to answer those things truthfully to yourself. I'm like, okay, I can be better in this way, and this way, and this way. And not from a place of like self-shaming necessarily, but from a place of, all right, this is what the yardstick is. And these are some objective ways in which I can be better, where I am capable of better, and choosing to take the action to be better in those ways. Yeah. So it's kind of a catalyst to start to self-analyze in a new way with some new perspectives. And also too, on the flip side of that, like we talked about in the very beginning, is recognizing how lonely a lot of men are. And to be able to create a container in which you can have hard conversations around the things that matter, and at the very least to be able to share your own experience to normalize some of the struggle that some other guys might be going through. Right. Was a big piece for me. Like, you know what, let's see if I can't be useful a little bit, to where like it's fine. Like I seem to only be able to learn anything good through profound ass kickings, and so maybe put some of that to decent use. Yeah. As is available. So
no, well, it was cool because I remember you coming to the event, and this was like last summer, and you came, and it was a smaller event for me, but like what really stood out to me, and we've been friends for years. Like, I mean, I started my CrossFit gym, you coached there a couple of times, and you started your CrossFit gym. Right. So like back in like, you know, what was that, 2013, 14, 15, 16 era, you know, we were in that fitness space together, and then we kind of lost contact. You kind of went into real estate, and then I kind of went into the mannequin models, fit modeling thing, and then here we are reconnected. But what stood out to me when you came to my event is that you really have done a lot of work, and it was very apparent, not just in your fitness, which you've seemed to maintain for quite some amount of years, but also just your self-development, your mindset. And I really like loved reconnecting with you at that event, because then we like started chatting, and then the next one was out at the beach. We had that bonfire where no one else showed up except you, and we just had a cool conversation about purpose and about your pathway, and also just like keeping that motivation and finding that strength within yourself to keep going when, like you said, it is lonely. Like if you don't have people surrounding you going the same direction, it's hard to keep pushing storm after storm, battle after battle, demon after demon, relationship conflict after relationship conflict, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I remember at that bonfire that we talked about purpose, and that was a big topic for us. And I would like to hear kind of where you're at on that these days.
I think, well, it's like with anything, it's been a growth process almost away from what was presented in childhood into something a little bit more fluid, in that I grew up very conservative, very Southern Baptist, super Christian, and so the idea of purpose was that it was ordained externally. So like you have this, it was the phrasing around it was you're seeking the will of God. Like you're trying to figure out the predefined way that you're supposed to move through the world. And if you aren't doing the right things, or if you aren't asking the right questions, if you're not paying attention in the right way, you can miss it. And so there's a lot of fear attached to around life purpose. And as I've gotten older and done a lot of different things professionally and lived a bunch of different places and making a couple of people, that has shifted into the idea of like different life chapters have different purposes.
Yeah.
And essentially growing through layers versus it being like a singularly defined path.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense at all. To whereas like if I look back over different periods, each one has served a different purpose and has taught me a different something.
Yep.
To where it's more of paying attention to what's salient now,
Right.
within today. Where can I be the most useful to the people that I have influence over, and versus it being a singular way, if that makes any sense at all.
No, I get that. Walk me through the transition from CrossFit gym owner into real estate into what you're currently doing now is working, and tie that into what you just talked about with purpose and how you have like milestones of purpose, and then where is it leading you to?
Good question. So yeah, it's like within the framework of layers of purpose over time, or needing a professional identity to prove. I was proving different things to myself at different times is probably the cleanest way to think about it. Is like growing up relatively athletic genetically, but because of I was homeschooled, so I didn't have a ton of like athletic opportunity, and so that felt like something that was missing, that I didn't get an opportunity. And so in my early 20s I learned about CrossFit, started Olympic lifting like aggressively, and really learning how to train in a meaningful and productive way, to where I was like, as a young man, like my masculinity was attached to how powerful I can make myself. I needed to be able to do that, and in so doing I was in high level athletic environments. Like I had an internship at UCLA when we first moved here, worked with their sport performance group there. It was just cool to watch elite athletes move.
Oh yeah,
is beautiful.
Right.
And before that, when I was at LSU, like we did some observing of the football squad, and like those are just massive human beings. And getting to train under Coach Hatch, and so getting to spend some time at an elite level sport environment was attached to it. And so like through the fitness space, it was always performance focused. It was how to make the people, the athletes that I'm working with, biggest, baddest, fastest, most powerful, and in so doing, like creating that for myself. And like, of course I wasn't conscious of it at the time, but in retrospect, like that was the focus, is if like this was me being a powerful athlete and moving within an ecosystem that is about that, in turn makes me more masculine. And like it was an expression of that. And the gym ownership piece. So like when we met initially was it was in Santa Monica, Golden State. That was the place.
Golden State, yeah.
It was just getting into LA. It was a shiny new environment. It was really exciting. Kid from Mississippi, first time in California. And that was really fun. But what was cool about that was the change of perspective going into gym ownership. Is like initially as a coach, you show up, you do your thing, you're looking around, you're like, man, I can do this. These people should be paying me, not this clown.
Yeah.
Like I can totally do this. And which isn't untrue, except when I opened my own place, I became immediately aware of how I'm not a good businessman, like naturally. Like all the things, like the sort of hard-nosed negotiating, the ability to stand up underneath pressure, the ability to argue.
Yep.
For your own benefit with clients, they might be wrong, actually. And it's not like, yeah, let me figure out how to make that work for you, might not actually be the right answer.
Right.
And so recognize really quickly that, like, oh, I don't have this. An arrogant child got introduced to a little bit slight, like one rung up of sophistication. It was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And so that was the next phase of that. I was like, oh, all right, like, I need to learn new things. And like it was a really good, like CrossFit Los Feliz was a really good situation. My business partner was very fair.
Yeah.
And also glad that we're not in business together anymore. Like he's a good guy with a good heart and also difficult to deal with sometimes. And he was very generous to me and very fair, and it was a great experience.
Yep.
And I was also glad when I left, because it was the recognition of like into the business space is like, can I do this with the, can I be the face? Can I be the product? Can I do this all the time? Like, sure. And also like a couple years into it and similar experience with your CrossFit gym is like, oh, I need like 6 of these before I'm making any meaningful money. And I'm tired. I'm so tired.
Well, that's where the passion runs out, right? It's all
true.
excitement in the beginning, and then you jump into it, and like it was like that with CrossFit. Just like as an athlete, you jump into it, you're like, this is new, it's exciting, let's do it, and then you run that pace for a while, and then you go, what's next? And then it's like, oh, owning a gym, that seems like possible, and then you do that, and then you get a couple years into it, you're like, oh, what's next? And when you ask yourself like that question, what's next? It's time to move on, in which you did leave the CrossFit space and stepped into real estate. Yeah,
and so like I wish it had a more sophisticated or elegant thought process with the transition, but it was really like, all right, this isn't. I set out. This was the goal. The goal was to have my own facility, and here it is.
Yep.
I now have a cleaner understanding of what that reality looks like, and I don't really want this anymore. Now what? And Christina was pregnant with our first son at the time, and I was like, okay, I need to make some grown-up money. LA is expensive. I'm not going back to school. So like, what's the highest earning potential with the lowest barrier to entry with same basic skill set? That is the ability to communicate effectively, to make people feel comfortable in uncomfortable environments.
Yep.
I was like, how many houses do I need to sell at 6% in LA County before I make a living? That seems plausible. Let's go that way. Yep. And like we've talked about before, the lack of due diligence before jumping in with both feet. Got licensed, got after it, and was profoundly miserable for most of that time.
Right.
But again, like needed to learn things. And like with the gym, it was attached, like athleticism was attached to masculinity.
Yeah.
And so that was a piece of that learning. It was like I needed to check that box for myself. And the real estate space was I needed to put on a suit, both actually and in my own perception, because like that was a part of it. It was like business acumen was associated with like boardrooms and doing massive deals and being able to negotiate skillfully and being able to for lack of a more elegant term, like you need to be able to manipulate people to make a situation work.
Did being a new father, have anything to do with your decision to go into real estate or make that career, that pivot?
Yes. Well, it was part of it was the financial piece. It was like the business itself, the gym business was successful right off the bat. Like it was profitable right away, but also the margins were low.
Yeah.
And which I think your experience is similar, is you're consistently bailing out a boat with holes in it.
Yep.
Which is just the nature of a membership style business model. Mm-hmm. And people's lives change, and attrition is part of it. And regardless of how excited they are when they start, like even if nothing bad happens, and even if you do exactly right from their point of view, it's like people move and life situations change and interests change, and so you're constantly needing to feed this ever turning machine. And so it's like, okay, realistically, this single location is not gonna do notably better or different than it is.
Right.
If my financial situation is going to change in a meaningful way, then we need to then leverage all these other things and do more and more and more. And if I'm honest, like I was pretty burned out and had lost interest.
Yep.
Yeah, and I wish it was more elegant and better thought out than that, but it really wasn't. It was like, I'm burnt and bored, and I don't want this. And I want to make more money. And my uncle in Mississippi was or still is, I suppose. He's more retired now. But a real estate developer, more commercial.
Yeah.
But it's small town Mississippi commercial. But when we talked last, he peaked at 125 doors, and it's like, all right, Jim knows what's up. And there's always been something that was interesting, and so I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Let's see what's going on here. Let's dive off into real estate. And so, like, really, like, was fatherhood a catalyst for the change? Indirectly, in that, like, if I'm gonna have a family, I need to have more money than this. So let's go chase that and see if it's better. And it worked some years, and some years it real didn't.
Yeah.
But also too is like with any kind of ass kicking, you learn, and I'm really grateful for all of the experience, even though it was like deeply unpleasant and deeply challenging in a lot of ways. Like the reorientation with wealth, like again, I'm blue collar Mississippi, and I've never really been around real affluence before.
Yep.
And to be around people that paid too much for their money, to work with and in the presence of people who are sacrificing really all the things in their lives that matter on the altar of professional success. And it's like, yeah, your business is rad, and your car is nice, and that's a beautiful suit, and those Gucci's on your feet, they're lovely. And like, that's all great. Like, these are objectively good things. And then to also observe that, like, you know what? Maserati's just their car.
Right.
Like, yeah, that's a $5 million cliffside, and it's just the box you sleep in. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I was telling this story to a friend recently. Like, the moment that concept struck me was we were selling a house over in Playa del Rey. It was like a custom built thing. This guy was a successful restaurateur, and yeah, it was beautiful. And we were giving us the grand tour and the elevator and the whole deal, but it was his closet that was so striking to me, to where it was probably, I've had apartments that were smaller, but like we walked in and it's probably like 12, 15 foot ceilings, all custom, everything in there, and it was all empty except for like his stuff. It's like a standard space. Like, everything's all nice and tidy, and I think he did have some Gucci's in there too. But it was so striking. That's like, you are desperately alone. Fascinating.
Interesting.
And it was destabilizing a little bit. It was like this singularity of focus. Again, like, we weren't poor growing up, like, but like there was an extra.
Right.
And so it was like more money fixed all the problems that mattered. And now I was operating in a space where that wasn't true. And it left me rudderless for a little while.
Interesting.
And so that's one of my favorite lessons
Yeah.
from that period, was like the demystification of wealth. and started to see this thing like as a tool more so than a goal in and of itself. And that like you can sacrifice the wrong things for the wrong things.
Of course.
And again, like I said, it's all brand new. Like never having moved amongst real money before. It was a good experience for sure.
Okay. Was this experience with the closet and that realization, was this before or after the real estate development meeting that you told me about, where there was like this list of things and you said like all the guys in the room were just like, you could tell visibly that they were excited to tackle this list?
That was before.
Okay.
That's a good reference.
Because I feel like that was very pivotal for your decision to
man,
kind of exit real estate and go into what you're doing now, which is much more purposeful and fulfilling.
It's more peaceful.
Yeah.
If nothing else. No, it was a defining moment in that. So
walk me through it for everyone who doesn't know.
Okay. So it did residential real estate on the west side of LA for like 3.5 years, and then I was recruited by a friend to go and do acquisitions for a builder. They were doing actually they're still around, Avenue Homes. Look them up. Great people. Good experience with the company too. And so I was doing acquisitions for them for about 1.5 years, and made it very clear that I wanted to learn the process. Yep. Like the idea of real estate development was really fascinating to me, and I just wanted to be in the room, even if I don't have a reason to be here. Like I want to learn what the process is. So they were very gracious and allowed me to do that. So one of the deals that I had brought in, like, okay, I don't remember the address, doesn't matter, but they were sitting down in front of the list, the itemized list of things that needed to get done, from like, all right, we brought the deal in, it closed, bam, to fully leased up at the bottom of the list. And so there were 3 other guys, head of operations, head of that whole department in general, and my immediate supervisor. And I'm observing the body language of these guys, and so I'm looking at all the stuff. They've got this pro forma of how all the money is going to move over time, and it's like 7 sheets deep, and they're clicking back and forth for these things, and they're visibly excited about the whole thing.
Yep.
And I'm just like, all right, guys, we can do this, buddy. Like, get in here. And I understood like immediately. I was like, am I capable of disciplining my mind to be competent in this space? Like, yes, I can. Do I want that though? Yeah, and right. the timing of it was a different conversation with someone at that time was the difference between goading yourself into action on something, like disciplining yourself towards a goal and doing a list of things that are just necessary, versus something that draws you into action. Like there's a painting that you're working on, or like you're working on a little movie, or like whatever the project is, like something that you wake up and you're excited to go tinker with it for a while. And that was their energy. It was like they're excited to do the thing. They're being drawn into action. And I'm like, all right, don't beat your face on the table, pal. You got this. And like that was really important. I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. I thought I did, but now I don't. And well, shit. Now what?
Why are you wondering, like, why are these guys so excited, and why am I feeling like, oh man, like this is a chore? But like I'm in this room where this is you told yourself you wanted to be there, but you're seeing these guys all excited about it, and you're not feeling the same. So is that the moment where you realize like, I want that feeling, but that feeling is not here for me?
Yeah, it wasn't as clean as that in the moment. It was more of a recognition. It was like a defining moment in a process of understanding. Yeah. It was like having different conversations around, like if you're going to be a successful real estate developer, it's less about, like for me, it's more like aesthetics and design, and like that was the piece, like that part of the project is what was exciting. But what makes you good at that business is like you're a banker, is your relationship with the money and how all that gets manipulated. Yeah. And I didn't know that until I was in there. I was like, I don't want to be a banker. I'm not, like, in the same way, like in real estate, I found myself being a commodities trader. I'm like, how did I get here? This is not the way. And same deal, like when the real estate, like the development space, I was like, I'm not a banker. Like, this isn't how my brain works. I don't want to do this. Like, okay. And like that, fast forward, it's about 6 months later, was the last deal that I ever closed. Was the longest. It took about 6 months to put together, and was the highest value, and it was the most back and forth. Like, I was sure that it was falling apart like 9 times, and I'd come to the place of giving up on it. And it finally closed. They handed me a check for $40,000. I'm like, congratulations, you did awesome. And felt nothing.
Wow.
And like, I was like, oh, like, hooray, I got paid. Like, cool. My savings account's going in the right direction. That's nice. That makes me feel good. But from like satisfaction of completion, or like pride and accomplishment, or like any of those intangibles that really make you do anything, was absolutely empty.
Interesting.
And like that was the like the final moment. It's like the peak of the existential crisis, I suppose. And so like as I was wrestling around with that reality, COVID started. So this was spring of 20. And so all the investment groups that we were working for, they stopped placing their money, obviously. Yeah. And so like any active escrow that was open at that time, all of them canceled. And so like, but as soon as they were like, hey, we're going to put everything on pause, like, well, I'm not getting paid for 6 months at least. Yep. And so I ended up going, I stayed at home, fathered for a while. My wife's a nurse, so she was in high demand at the hospital. I was like, you know what? These people aren't paying me. I'm not going to transition right now into some other real estate space while the world's on fire. I'll just do dad stuff, and we'll hold this down. Worst case, my oldest son was due to start kindergarten later in the year. Yep. And I was like, okay, cool. Worst case, I'll hang out until August. We'll send this clown to school, and then we'll figure out what's going on then. Right. Well, as everyone knows, schools did not open, and I found myself a stay-at-home father and elementary educator against my will, and which again, like with every good ass kicking comes the lessons that are important, because like some guys have a really like enthusiastic and joyful like early fatherhood experience, and I really didn't have that. Like I wasn't ready, and it was really, really challenging. And so what it did was stuffed me. Like the only way that I was able to contribute to my household was by being an excellent father and caretaker for the children, while my wife was making the money. Yeah. And that was deeply unpleasant for all the reasons that you think that it was. But also too, it made me deal with really intimately a lot of the ways that I wasn't doing a good job. And so being like really grateful for being stuffed into a position that I would not have chosen. Yeah. Because fast forward, like my relationship with my sons is really pretty great. Yeah. And especially as Silas gets older, like the baby's dying, and he's slowly shifting. He's asking different questions and interested in different sorts of things. And it's like we're getting into the good stuff, and because of the changes that were made then, because I stopped running away and stopped numbing and stopped distracting myself from doing the work that I needed to be a better father. Yeah. Creating a container in which we can have the conversations that matter as he gets older, versus dad goes to work and then comes back and like, what's up guys? And then has a drink, goes out with his buddies. Yeah. Good to see you, boy. Yeah. And a much more engaged presence in their lives than I otherwise would have if I'd stayed on that path. Interesting.
And okay, so you're stay-at-home dad. You're teaching the kids. You're raising the kids. You're doing everything. You're Mr. Dad at home. And when does the point come where you figure out you got to go back to the workforce and do something?
Yeah. Well, it was in. Lockdowns started loosening, things started to normalize, folks are dying less. The world's slowly getting back to normal, and it was like, okay. During that period, like how the carpentry stuff started was essentially like one of my wife's coworkers needed her backyard redone, like deck built around her pool, fencing, like nothing complicated, but a large project.
Right.
And she's like, Brent needs something to do other than keep these children. He is in a bad way. And so essentially like shoved me into that project. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is cool. Let's do this. And so I spent a few weeks doing that, and came out really great. And so like word got around the hospital that she works at UCLA. Word got around the hospital that Christina's husband builds things. And so I actually turned down some business because about like once I finished that up, started doing some interviews, going back to residential real estate on the west side, and was back trying to do that because I was like, well, this is a hard-earned skill set. I would be foolish to walk away from earning potential. Like I know the right questions to ask now. Like I've worked with all these players. Like I have a better sense of how to position myself.
Yeah.
And so like, thank you for the opportunity. I'm just not really focused on that right now. I'm over here trying to sell houses again, etc. So fast forward, it was right at 6 months of doing the deal. You're doing the open houses. You're hanging out with people. You're following up with leads, and you're doing all of that stuff. And I'm sitting at the desk in the office and looking at this list of phone numbers I don't want to call, and these sheets of data that I can't possibly care about. And I was like, man, I genuinely have no idea what the next step is, but I know that this is not the way.
Yeah.
I can't spend my life minutes like this. And which was horrifying.
Right.
It was like, cool, I know what not the way is, but I don't know what the actual way is. And so like within, I'd say it was 2 weeks or less of like coming to that really clean realization and then wrestling with it.
Yep.
One of the doctors that Christina works with, we were living in the marina at the time. So they bought a house like a 5-minute walk from our apartment. I'm like, hey, we got this long list of things. I saw some of the work you did. It's amazing. Blah blah blah. Would you come and take a look and see if any of this stuff's in your wheelhouse? Well, sure. Why not? So I go and I check out all their stuff, and it's just like yes, no. Very much no, yes, no, yes. And so it's like, okay, cool. It's 6 weeks or so worth of work. I have no idea what to charge, but it'll be more money than the zero that I'm making over here with my no sales that I've got. Let's go. And so I left that meeting, called my sales manager and resigned, and like on my walk home, and I was like, okay, let's go.
You're doing it.
And let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And they were pleased with the jobs that I did. They hired me to do more stuff. And then somebody else called for something, and it was the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing. And so it's been just over 2 years now doing that full time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's been really cool.
Yeah.
It's been really cool. I'm really grateful. Like I've never done something that drew me into action before. And that's not to say that like work still work.
Right.
To be clear. But a professional time spend that demanded you do it more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like right now, I'm booked until like midsummer.
That's great.
Part of that's because I'm slow.
Yeah.
And it's a one-man show. But also too is like they're like offhand, they're like 10 projects in hand at the moment, which is extraordinary, and I feel really, really grateful. It's been really cool.
That's awesome.
It's been really cool.
That's awesome. So in the Rebel Project, we have the 4 F's, the faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I mean, you started your journey with fitness. I'm assuming, judging by the way you look, you've maintained it. You've really kind of got on the horse again in the last year or so, which has been great. And so you've maintained that, and now you are kind of exploring different avenues of finance, leaving real estate, going into woodworking. What I want to kind of pivot into is like, where did the journey of faith come in for you? And when I say faith, I'm not necessarily talking about religion. I'm talking about the self-development, the self-growth. You kind of realizing that you're going through these transitions. I'm going to then also segue into your relationship with your wife and the years of marriage and the support or lack of support or the connection or lack of connection that you guys had. But like, have you always been into self-development and like, you come across very self-aware. You're always like, man, okay, this was tied to masculinity, and this was me trying to prove that I could do business, and this was me trying to, seek these things out, almost trying to seek external validation. So it's like, where does the moment of truth come in for you? Was this in the CrossFit years, or the real estate years, recently?
I would say that's a good question. It's probably within the real estate space, was the normalizing of filling your mind with other people's ideas.
Yeah.
That there's one of the things I still do periodically, but when I, especially in real estate time, like you're taking people out to lunch constantly to do stuff, but I would take people to lunch and then have a list that I shamelessly stole from Tim Ferriss of interview questions, like people that I think that I can learn from. Yep. I want to see what I can get out of them, because there's wisdom available to me here. And Brandon Hance was the guy that said, he was the CEO of Avenue, super sharp guy.
Brandon Hance from Golden State?
Yeah, man.
No way.
I was blown away. I was blown away. But I asked him, I was like, what's again, Tim Ferriss question. It's like, what's the best thing that you've spent $20 on that's changed your life in a noticeable way? And he's like, books all day, without even thinking. Like, you could pick 12. Yeah. That have you read this book, you get a fresh idea, it changes your perspective on something, and then that has a massive impact on your life. And that idea kind of percolated, and so I'd been just from the idea of disciplining yourself, and almost like in like morning routines and that kind of stuff. It was like, hey, I'm going to read 12 pages of something. And so that's kind of where it began. Yeah. And then it shifted more into less of a discipline and more of, this just makes sense to do, because like my scope of experience is so limited in the scope of experiences that are available. So why would I not seek the wisdom? Like, somebody pick any thought leader that off the top of your head, like, why would I not spend $20 on their tightly curated, edited, condensed thoughts that they think are useful?
Yeah.
Why would I not spend my time on that, at least loosely?
Sure.
And so it's really been more of that. Is like, I'm more of an audiobook guy these days, just because of the time constraints of my life situation at the moment.
Right.
But you just throw that in, and like Brene Brown, I've been obsessing over her stuff recently. Because you equip yourself better for the things that are inevitably going to be demanded of you.
Right.
And so why would you not at least do close to your best at being prepared for that? So hopefully you're progressively more elegant in the way that you manage life challenge over time.
Right. Versus
like, maybe it was a generational thing, or maybe it was cultural where I come from. It was like the idea of like, this is the way I am, never going to change. Like, that's absurd.
A little bit.
That's absurd. It's like, if I look back on like my mindset and my ways of being as as a young adult, like, you're adorable. Look at you. And I was actually talking to my mom this weekend about that idea. I was like, should I expect 20 years from now to reflect back on my own self and think that same thing? Like, but almost level 4. I'm like, oh, you're cute. You think you know stuff. Nice. So I guess that would be, it's just sort of normalized in chasing your own curiosity through other people's experience.
Right.
And I'm like, let's see.
Okay. All right. Well, especially in the last 10 months that we've kind of reconnected, you've definitely kicked it up in the fitness category, and
just more consistent.
Yeah, you're putting in the meditation each day. You're also mastering your finance within your business. Right. Now let's talk about family. Over the years, you're proving yourself and your masculinity through CrossFit, then transitioning to ownership, then going to real estate, and now finally doing something with your hands that is much more meaningful and enjoyable and rewarding. But you've been married this whole time, 15 years, right?
15 years.
15
next month.
years, and before the show, you were talking, telling me how it's been highs and lows. So talk about, can you walk me and the audience through your relationship with your wife.
Sure.
And also, like, have you guys always been on the same page? Have you been on different pages? When you guys realize you're on totally separate books, how do you get back onto the same page? Like, let's take that ride.
Let's see where. Well, we met in Alabama. I was in the Coast Guard at the time. She's from New Orleans originally and got displaced by Katrina, so she ended up going to nursing school there in Mobile, where I was stationed. We got married super young. She was 22. I was 24, which is normal at the time culturally. Which is absolutely insane when you say it out loud, especially on like West Coast thinking, like the absurdity that you would choose a life partner when you're
in your early 20s.
Like, just get out of here. So a statistical anomaly in that way, but also too is like what we talked about previously, the reason that it still works, or there's an acceptance of the fact that we are dynamic, like a mutually understood reality. Is that we're a dynamic people and consistently changing and adjusting, and the things that were desperately important even a handful of years ago couldn't be bothered with. Like, that's just a reality. And so it necessitates a skillfulness in the way that you communicate, a regularity in which you I don't want to say check in. That's not the right way to phrase it, but
recalibrate,
giving yourselves the opportunity to talk about the things that are important to make sure that we're moving in the right direction, and really probably more importantly that you have real and regular conversations around like low grade angst, so that it does not grow into resentment. That then creates massive issue. Because like for us, like, that's been a really good lesson for me, because I'm naturally a more easygoing kind of guy. It's like it's hard to get me upset. Like, I'm down for lots of things, and so like, yeah, cool. And she is a little bit more direct, and so like that balance has been fine. And then we didn't know until the pandemic days, where I'm just fathering, like, really how much I resented her for shoving me into that. And like how toxic that had become. And then to be able to look at like behaviorally how that was manifesting, and like the lack of awareness and the lack of communication around something so massive, created this host of issues that we then needed to process through. And it's like this accumulation. That's probably a good way to say it, is that at this point we're better at keeping accumulated hurt down.
Interesting.
Because I mean, in the beginning, like, I have a buddy, I was having this conversation 2 weeks ago. He's a year into the relationship. He's about our age, and he's been married before. And he was like, you know what, dude? It's just easy. It's just easy. It's really, really nice. And it's like the other ladies, like they were great in these ways, but like, it's just simple. I'm like, yes, beautiful. I love it. I am firmly of the opinion that if there is not that period of effortlessness, especially in the beginning, you should probably look to partner elsewhere. That's not to say that it won't be required that you put forth like intense and sustained energy towards the maintenance of your romance and all of the things that are attached to that. But in the beginning, like, especially if you don't have kids, especially if your finances aren't intertwined, like, there's no pressure on this thing. And so if it's not magical and dopamine filled, like, maybe you could do better. And so like, as life goes on and you get some babies and you're dealing with familial drama, and so you're just piling all this real life stuff onto your romance. And if it's not beautiful right off the bat, it's not ever going to be. And so anyway, that's been a big lesson for us over the last couple of years, is having unpleasant conversations regularly enough so that we don't accumulate like low grade hurt into something that creates real resentment, and you start to be nasty to each other. And so it's almost a discipline in that regard.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and communicating those low grade anxieties or feelings and accumulation of emotion there, but that's not natural. So where did you guys go to therapy to open that door up, or were there moments of it was just like ultimatums?
Yeah, man.
Or did you just go, hey, we need to communicate better because I feel like there's a low tension that we're not it's in the room but we're just not dealing with it. So
as far as that as a practice, we started. Well, no, it was out of necessity because, like we said before, it was like in this amount of time, we've almost divorced at least 3 times.
Wow.
To where it's not like fuck you, I'm moving out. Like we're not harmful in the way that we communicate in that way. We're not explosive in that way like some people are. But it was more of the recognition like this is not working for me.
Yeah.
I am desperately unhappy and we got to figure something out. We talked about the pandemic time and doing fatherhood exclusively. Is like that was a piece of it. Yep. Was that pressure squeezed out that resentment. Like I resented her hard because I wasn't ready for the necessary life transition that you go, like what I call adolescent adulthood. It was like a lot of my friends at the time, they're late 20s, early 30s. They're still partying their faces off. Like they're just free in the world, doing whatever. You got big kid jobs, you got grown up money and no responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's pretty shiny. And then to be like, so Brent, what do you got going on this weekend? Like, I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to clean up baby shit. And that's all. That's all I'm going to do. And so the weight, it didn't have to be, that was a garbage attitude. But my mindset around the inherent sacrifice that's attached to parenthood was dark and it was ugly. And it was, it felt against my will because while she was not unkind in this presentation of information, it was just real matter of fact. It was like, look, I want, like, having children of my own is a fundamentally important thing for my life. And if you don't want to do that, we need to have that conversation.
Right.
Like, I want to have them with you. I want to build our family. And if you're not there with me, like, let's have that conversation. We need to make some choices. And I was 29 at the time. And this was during the CrossFit days, like I said. And I was like, you know what? I've run out of reasons to tell you no. Held her off for a long time. And I was like, you know what? I never saw myself not having kids. Let's go. Let's figure it out. Which is not a great mindset to go into one of, at least for me anyway, one of the more challenging life chapters, and provided it was worse because I made a career transition at the time as well. So we doubled up both of those things. Don't recommend. Don't do it, kids. But it was
had to be high.
It was more of it was just so hard because we don't have any family here. And so it's not like you can take the kid over to the in-laws house and be like, I need an hour so I don't do murder to him or to me or to the people around me. I need a minute. Like, that's not available. And so you just figure it out. And she went back to night shift at the hospital as soon as she went back to work. So, like, we were high-fiving. She would come home in the morning. I'd hand her the baby. I would go to work. She would sleep when he slept. Like, it was a mess. And so, again, don't recommend that, kids. Not a good way. But it was recognizing how badly I resented her for shoving me into such a massive life change that I wasn't really ready for.
Right.
And we'd never talked about that. I didn't know. I was just mean to her because I was angry.
Yeah.
And small things in normal householding mattered.
Yeah.
It's like, she is a example, like a stupid surface example, is like, she is a less tidy human being than I am. That's fine. She has many other attributes. I can do dishes. It just bugs me when the house is in disarray. And so, like, I'll do my stuff and put it away. She is objectively unbothered by stepping over things. Like, doesn't care, doesn't register. And it took me a long time because before it was like, you left that shit there on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And like that's a really good example of like how arbitrary day-to-day nonsense can be personalized, and like that's malicious. Like, and you're doing that anyway because I'm mad at you for this other thing that I'm not even aware of, and so you're just like thrashing around in the dark. And so like it was when that came to a head, and I'll never forget the moment that she apologized for I mean, she didn't force me, but she kind of. The moment that she apologized for pushing me into fatherhood before I was really ready, it was like this weight fell off of me that I didn't know that I had.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we got to be better about this. And so having moved, and like that was the catalyst. Like we started going to therapy. We're still seeing the same therapist. This has been.
That acknowledgement is so important.
It was massive.
So important. It's just a little phrase. It's one sentence, but it can change your world.
It was massive, and I didn't know how bad I needed it until she said it.
Yeah.
And so like we see our therapist every couple of weeks. Sometimes there's spicy stuff to go over. Sometimes it's really not. You just like it's like changing the oil in your car. It's just scheduled maintenance.
Yep.
And so that's some, like at this point, it's become how we deal with stuff. Is we're both a lot more self-aware. We're both through those experiences more skilled in not just communicating, but understanding the way that we operate naturally, and understand like she's way different than me in a bunch of different ways.
Yep.
And so like her autoresponders are different than me. The way that she processes information is different than me. The way that she needs information to be presented is different. It's taken me 15 years for that girl to speak kindly. That doesn't mean that she's an asshole, but she's just a very direct human.
Yeah. And
she works in the hospital where it makes sense to be like super direct in information.
Yeah.
And like that's all cool, except when you're dealing with like delicate emotions. Like, don't slap me with information hammers, please. I need some delicacy, if you could. And so it's just like stuff like that you learn and choose to adapt. Mm-hmm. And that's been the difference. Is if there was any like single piece, I'm like, oh man, it's been a decade and a half. Awesome, that's a thing. It's the consistently choosing to meet the other as like where you're meeting consistently changes over time. Right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have like, you work out every day, you meditate every day. Do you have like a routine for romance?
Ooh, good question. A routine? No. Let me see. It's more of,
other than just being aware of like how you guys communicate and that, like how do you guys keep on track and stay on track and keep growing your relationship now versus the low moments?
I think it is for me it's as foolish as it sounds even to me, is like choosing playfulness to where it's simpler, it's easier, to where it's like, all right, cool, here's my list of, these are my boxes to check, these are my chosen disciplines, these are the activities that I understand need to happen in order for this desired outcome.
Right.
Versus just being open to a little bit of spontaneity, playfulness to exist in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Good examples, like we went out last week, and like really dates and consistent like outings have not been a part of our life, just because of we haven't had any money and we got no family. So it's like, if I'm going to leave the house and it's going to cost me $300 just to pay someone else to hang out there, that's going to limit the number of things that we do.
Naturally.
And so we went out the other day, and it was just me being aware of, this girl just wants to go out and dance. That's all she wants.
Yeah.
I don't dance. I can. It's bad, but I can. And go out and be playful in a way that is going to fill her cup. I can do that.
Yeah.
No big deal. And as simple and silly as something like that sounds, it then fills her up in a meaningful way.
Yep.
It then allows her to give to me in the ways that she knows that I need to be given to. And so again, it's a version of like meeting your partner where they are in the way that they need to be given to.
Yeah.
So that they can be the best version of themselves, and which again leads to more lighter and more playful ways of being in your householding, because like the necessity of the house doesn't change.
Right.
No, it's like that responsibility isn't any different, but to be able to understand what she needs, and for me to be like, you know what, I'm fun, damn it, let's go. And so that's been the shift lately. Okay. Is rather than it being like, all right, we need to do date night every Thursday, and we need to make sure that we're going on our weekend trip every quarter or whatever, it's been more of what feeds her spirit and seeking to both create the space for that to exist, because it might not have anything to do with me.
Yeah.
And also learn how to play together, and whatever that looks like.
Right.
Some people have a ton of shared activities. We honestly don't. It's like, I like to surf. I like to be outside. I like to build things with my hands. If I'm gonna take time just for me, I'm gonna be alone.
Yep.
And I will return from those experiences refreshed, replenished, ready to go.
Sure.
And she is much more social in that way. Like, she wants to go out. She wants to be around like large groups of peoples and concerts, and like all that stuff's fine. Like, I'll go do that stuff, and like I need a nap.
Yeah.
Afterwards. Whereas like she's fed by that. She'll ride that high for the whole next week. And so it's like, for the focus during this chapter is recognizing, all right, this is what's important to my partner. This is what gives her life. How can I facilitate that?
Right.
Like, what responsibility can I assume at home that's going to free her up so that she can do her stuff, so she can feed her spirit and then return her best self? And in what ways can we go play together that is equally satisfying?
Yeah.
So that like it's the playfulness, because I tend to default to obligation.
Yeah.
Not in like an ugly or not in an ugly way, not in a resentful type of way, but like I don't mind the idea of I am responsible for things, therefore I do X, Y, Z, and how I feel about those things are irrelevant. It's necessary, therefore I do it. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so like that's been one of the things that she has helped keep at the front of my mind over the last couple of years. It's like, bro, it's okay to play.
Yeah.
It's all right.
No, I love that. That's
relax.
Great. That's really good. So piecing this all together, we kind of talked about, and we opened this conversation talking about purpose, and we talked about your different career transitions, and then we kind of went back into the self-development along the way, and then the relationship along the way, and maintaining a balance of all of these things. But also the original kind of question was, one large purpose or all these little purpose milestones? And my question to you, summing this all up, is what are those purpose milestones, and then what is your ultimate, what is your purpose at this point where you're at now, and where is it going forward for you to tie it all up in one giant bow?
So yeah, if I were to take a moment and reflect on like what's at the front of my attention right now versus historical chapters, and through the lens of personal life purpose, it would have to be, it's focused more on my boys right now. To where historically it was about me. It was about me reaching a certain arbitrarily chosen point of professional success, or a perceived level of like career satisfaction, there was a lot of expectation when it came to the type of experience I would have in my professional life. And while like you don't want to have your spirit sucked out in exchange for money, and also like what you do for money doesn't have to define you.
Right.
And that's been a relatively new realization for wiser people than me. They were like, yeah, duh. But that's become a reality for me. And so while I'm fortunate to have a small business that I do in fact enjoy the process, and it is paying me enough for the ends to meet, like that's all dope. But it's become less about that as, there are practical concerns that need to be met. And also I'm more focused on being the type of father that my sons need for this chapter.
Yeah, no.
And like they're not gonna need me in the way. Great way to think about it. When they were infants, they needed me in a different way than they do today. And so now at 5 and 8, they are transitioning out of being babies into being young men, adolescents, and then hopefully kicking these clowns out, turning you loose in the world, at least loosely equipped for what will be expected
life,
of you.
Yeah.
And so what they need from me is starting. How does Christina word it? The mother-baby dyad is dying. And they are needing their father in a new way.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I love about the woodworking right now is the availability that it allows.
Yeah.
So where I work out of the garage at home, it's not particularly glamorous, but the commute is so good.
In LA.
Dude. But it allows me, like if somebody's sick or they need to get picked up from school for something, or really whatever the situation is, I can be available. Like, are there deadlines? Are there expectations I've set with clients? Is there a certain way that I like to present and execute? Like, of course, all that stuff does matter.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not building houses. I'm building cabinetry. I'm building furniture. Like, this is all extra stuff in the client's life. So if I need to call and be like, hey, Gloria, it's going to be a couple weeks late. Had something come up with my son. I gotta pay attention to that. I'm so sorry. I'm going to be behind schedule.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm not building houses. They're not waiting to move in. They're not upheaving someone else's life. Like, even if it's worst case scenario from a production standpoint, it's a simple conversation with one individual who most likely is going to be decent.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I'm able to be really, really available in a way that was really unthinkable a generation before.
Right.
And it's doing so purposefully.
Yeah.
Because fast forward 10, 15 years, it's like, it's not going to be necessary. They're not going to need me in the same way and not to the same intensity. And there'll be plenty of available energy for me to pursue other interests and other professional goals. And like all that's going to be available. But this period right now, this is what is most important. And other stuff can wait.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, you're in a period of fatherhood, and that seems to be the priority. But it's also bigger than that. It's kind of giving back in a way. Everything that you've learned, everything that you've experienced, and now you are in a position where you get to demonstrate the type of example you want your sons to become. A good mentor of mine says, "Your sons become you, and your daughters marry you." And so you are in this position where you are being a prime example of discipline with your body. You are now on good terms with your wife and growing there. So you're demonstrating how to love your partner and communicate within a relationship. You're also working in front of them at home. They get to see what you do. They can always step in and you can teach them how to do that. So you're getting to teach them a lot of lessons without teaching them a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
You know, the lessons that are caught, not taught, which is really cool. So I love this the period that you're in, and just like I said, over the talks that we've had on our coaching calls, and then just our sidebar calls, it's been really cool to see like the biggest takeaway that I have from you is just how self-aware you are, of how you don't let things fester too long. You really go, hey, you know what? There's a low grade tension here, or this is tied to masculinity, or I'm trying to prove something here, or man, I could do this, but I don't really want to do this. And you are quick to have like a realization with yourself or a moment of truth with yourself, and then course correct. And I think that's one of your greatest strengths personally, after chatting with you, and you also, when as you communicate, I can see your brain working. You're like walking around the perimeter of the thought, and you look at it from all different angles. And so I love your perspective and how you're able to kind of put yourself in different shoes and look at it from your way, but also look at it from other ways and realize what needs to change in order to kind of find the balance, especially with your marriage relationship.
Yeah, man.
So yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, any last comments, curse words, critiques, or advice that you want to give to the people listening as they're going through marriage, fatherhood, changing of careers? What's the gold nugget you want to leave the people with?
Be kind to yourself through those transitions.
Yeah.
Both in myself and in some of my closest friends, something that I noticed especially in people that are driven, that they're goal oriented, that often we drive ourselves through self-hatred, and that manifests in a bunch of different ways. But and it's super effective for a while. It's like the drive that comes out of shame or hating your reality or hating the situation that you're in, and the fuel to action that can be created through that is super effective.
Yep.
Over a short term. And that's been a lesson that touches all of it.
Yeah. Is
being patient with yourself as you learn new things.
Yeah.
That hard things are hard.
Yeah.
And if you want to be great at any type of discipline, it takes a while. And to rather than expect it to be awesome right off the bat, like, I can do this for sure. And then you do it and it's awful, and you do it again and it's slightly less awful. And then, and this is I'm doing a job right now, and it's nothing fancy. It's just some cabinetry, and it just fits on the first time.
Yep.
The doors fit on the first time. The top fit on the first time. The drawers go in like they're supposed to go. Yeah. Like, I'm not having to break things down and redo. And it's like, turns out if you do a thing a few times, you get better at it. Who knew? Yeah. But it was it's being kind to yourself to where it's like, I'm having trouble with my marriage right now. Totally normal.
Sure.
Everyone experiences this stuff. It's okay.
Right.
To where it's like, I want to punch my kid in the face because he's a dickhead. Totally normal. There are tons of people who have not a great time making new people. They're new here. They don't know how to behave. It's your job to teach them. Yep. And you don't know how to do it either. And you're learning as you go. And that's been the biggest shift. It doesn't mean that you can't be better. It doesn't mean that you aren't capable of more, and that you can and should adjust and improve in notable ways. And also, that change doesn't have to be driven by shame and self-hatred. Like, how could you do this? How could you think this way?
Of course.
Like, unbelievable.
I love it. I mean, it's such a small thing, but to be kind to yourself, and I like to say, give yourself grace and give yourself space as you grow.
Yeah, man.
I heard that somewhere. And so I mean, it's important. I mean, for everyone listening, I mean, life is going to bring you challenges, and you are not always going to know what to do, and you're not always going to know how to move forward, but realize that that is part of the process.
Yeah.
And be patient, be kind, and give yourself grace and give yourself space to grow through it. And it doesn't need to be fixed right now.
Yeah.
Maybe your purpose will be revealed a few steps down the road.
And that's what's cool too, is like, think about any good hero story, regardless of culture. There's always a long period. They're in the desert.
Right.
They're in prison. Like there's some massive time period where everything's awful.
Right.
By all external metrics, but the optics, they're terrible. You have failed. You're in the dark. You're irrelevant. And then through those experiences, from that pressure, through those failures, you are then developed into the hero character at the end. It's like it's not just it's normal, it's that it's necessary.
Absolutely.
And then having the awareness around, like, all right, this is not going great. How do I do better? And to your point, like, keeping the space, keeping the grace, so that it can be a useful time period versus you just being miserable. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Don't be afraid to let the pressure be applied, because that will cause you to perform and grow and learn from this entire process. So if you guys are listening, do your best to be aware, do your best to be graceful with yourself. And Brent, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I appreciate you. I love your mindset. I love your grit. I love your grind. And we'll have to do this again.
Right on, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, man. See you guys later.